While coming in for a landing on Tylo, we ran out of fuel. Jeb crashed into the surface, destroying his spacecraft. Fortunately, Jeb survived. But now we have to go save him. So, 343 days after Jeb crashed onto the surface, a nearly identical rescue craft has arrived in the Julian system. Now, it's unmanned, so there's room on board for Jeb, and we're going to try and get him home. The original goal was to do this with just one launch. That's clearly out of the question now, but if I can get down to the surface of Tylo, pick Jeb up, and bring him back to Kerbal, I will at least consider the design of the ship to be successful in that it could have gotten there and back. It's just, pilot error. I crashed it. I'm not the best at landings. I'm going to try and redeem myself here, though. So I managed to get myself into orbit around Tylo. We're going to circularize down and prepare to send the unmanned lander down to pick Jeb up. On my second trip out to Tylo, I've done a much better job not making as many unnecessary burns, and I have gobs of fuel that I don't need. If I could get the lander off the surface of Tylo, I could probably take that back to Kerbal too at this point. Anyway, I finally let the lander go, and I try to target where Jeb landed. And I'm going to try and do this manually myself because, like I said, I want to try and redeem myself, show that I can do this. It's going to be just a little bit tricky, however, as we're going to be landing on the dark side of Tylo. But we're going to begin by burning retrograde and get ready to descend. Again, this is the exact same lander that I tried to bring Jeb down in on the previous video, ran out of fuel and crashed with. Now it's got about a 15% safety margin on how much fuel it's got, and I did run out right before I hit the ground, but I'm again painfully aware that I don't have a whole lot extra here, and I have to try and make the burn fairly late so that I don't just end up fighting gravity as I fall down. Nonetheless, I end up bobbing up and down over the surface and kind of skidding across. It's nerve-wracking moments. Fortunately, I did remember to put lights on, so that's making it fairly easy to see how far I am away from the surface. But I'm just trying to gauge it, and the tense moment as I bounce, turn the engines back on a little bit too late, but finally settle down on the surface. Now, the bad news is that Jeb's about 150 kilometers away. Not my not the best landing of location. And then something bugs out and I can't select anything else or save, so I have to go back and do the whole thing again, at which point I say, to hell with it, mech Jeb, you land there. I could have Jeb walk 150 kilometers, but I don't really feel like it, and then mech Jeb promptly shows off and lands 8 meters from the target. Damn it. I guess I have a ways to improve, don't I? Anyway, Jeb, are you still there? Not like you could have gone anywhere. Looks like he's taking a nap. Let's wake him up, get him on over towards the ship, wait for sunrise on Tylo, and go ahead and finally plant that flag. He's excited, I know. It's been a pretty good challenge to get this flag out here on Tylo. Yeah, I have one further out on Elo, but that was a lot easier than this. I know I've used MechJeb a little bit to make my life easier. It's just partly how hard this game is. It really is challenging to do everything right, and hopefully I get to the point where I won't need MechJeb to do a few of the things for me, because yeah, coming up here things get a little dicey, but let's see if Jeb remembers where the ladders are, or more likely, if I remember where all the ladders are. I spent a while when I was building this lander making sure that Jeb could get back up on top of the seat, even on Kerbal, because I know the gravity was pretty high here on Tylo, and I didn't want to get stuck on the ground with the lander next to me. That would be super embarrassing. So I've practiced this. I know it works. I just kind of got to remember where I put each of the ladders in order to make my way up to the top. So if you're running into the same issue, one of the things I found was that the right click on the command chair and then it'll let me board. I can do that from fairly far away. I don't have to get the ladder all the way up right next to and on top of the command chair. That was going to be a real headache if I had to make that work, but that's not the case. As Jeb finally makes his slow ascent to the top of the perilously tall, and it's not that unstable, is it? I should probably be glad I didn't land up trying to land on a steeper slope. That would be nasty. Anyway, we can finally make plans to go ahead and lift off. I've still got some extra fuel in the main lander stage, so I'm going to use that to kick myself up and give myself a head start here. Though there should be enough fuel just in the little landing ascent stage that I could do this without. This is going to make my life a little easier here. That is... Wait a second, I start going the wrong way. No, you go around the planet the other way. To go back and try this again. And we're off for real this time. Jebediah is headed back into orbit around Tylo. I guess the other way would have worked too. I put one spacecraft in orbit going one way around the moon and another going the other way, but the one with more fuel is headed this way, and well, why not go ahead and go for that one? They're both at about the same altitude. Oh, there, and we ditched the main lander stage, and then we're down to the little tiny ascent stage, which is a command chair, some fuel, and a little tiny rocket motor. And for some reason, as I was talking about having issues with ladders, well, there's still a ladder stuck on the side of this thing, and it seems to be, well, at least part of the reason why it is horribly, horribly unbalanced and therefore is terrible to fly. I don't know if you can see the nav ball, but it is shaking as I am having to work very, very hard to keep that thing going in the right direction. But nonetheless, I do manage to get into orbit and start circularizing and headed towards my main spacecraft, where Jeb can go ahead and hop out of his lawn chair and get back into the pod. And now I have a decent idea what I need to do to get an orbital rendezvous with my main pod. It's the docking that's the real tricky part. But the horribly unbalanced craft is making it really, really difficult to make the fine corrections that are required. We got plenty of fuel left, but it's really proving extremely difficult. So I get up almost there and say, I feel lazy again, and I'll let Mech Jeb fly me within about 20 meters of the main pod. And hey, what do you know, before too long, the main pod comes into view. The rescue ship is dead ahead. I have to make a quick burn of the ascent stage's engine just to get myself a little bit closer, and then as we come up right next to it, it's time to try the EVA. More craziness. Oh, the very close call there is the ascent stage almost broke the solar panel off of the rescue ship. That would be very, very bad. I spend a while bouncing around out here, almost break the solar panel off myself before finally I managed to get Jeb on board. And we can start to worry about how we're getting back now that we have a ship. Have a quick look around this brand new cockpit. Not too bad. And there, hey, there's Jewel. It's right in the main view window. But it's time to think about heading back to Kerbal. Now, if I wanted to be really smart about this and really efficient, I could try and line up the phase angles between Jewel and Kerbal to get an appropriate transfer window. But that would require me to get outside of Tylo's sphere of influence to get the right readouts on that, and I just can't be bothered. So, also, I've got about 11,000 meters per second delta V, and I'm thinking it's going to take more like 3,004 at max in order to just go ahead and go home anyway. I'm not even going to need that second stage in there. So to hell with it, let's just go back, and it might not be the most efficient, or in game time it might take a while, but because I've got time acceleration, I can just go ahead and head back to Kerbal. Let's just do this. Now, I did spend a while, more time than I'd like to admit, trying to do something cool and efficient to get out of the Julian system. Mostly was looking for a gravity assist from a moon, especially given how I just randomly happened on one while I was trying to slow down and get to Tylo. But it never quite worked out, and so again, given the amount of fuel I had, I just went ahead and started burning for home, and I'll worry about things later. So, on my way away from Jewel, it's been fun, but we're going back to Kerbal now. And once I'm en route, I prepare to make a minor course correction. But something goes horribly wrong, and it tells me I need almost 5,000 meters per second delta V. Well, that's not right. So I go ahead and get rid of that, but then I realize I've left the SAS on, and I've just drained my battery. And as I noted earlier, I only have one solar panel on this thing, so, well, what am I going to do? Jeb, you want to get out and push us, turn the spacecraft around a little bit so that solar panel can catch some sun? He pushes, and he manages to push again, and you're thinking, okay, we're probably turning, and Jeb, go ahead and get back in. I don't know if I should be embarrassed to admit it, but yes, I've had to do that before. Anyway, Jeb heads back, and as he tries to grab the ladder, he gets thrown off of the pod. This is bad news, so he goes back and tries it again. Same thing happens. Yeah, Jeb seems to have encountered the legendary space kraken. Not actually literally, but yeah, that's what they call this kind of thing. as it's a bug in the game, and I can't get him back in the ship. And this is almost a disaster. We've almost lost the mission right here. But what am I going to do? Well, Jeb, all you can do is push some more. So that's what I have him to do. Drains his jetpack down to about 10%, and then goes back to try and grab that ladder one more time. And just like when I crash landed on Tylo, the game seems to have saved. I don't think I hit a quick save, but the game is definitely saved, so I can't go back to the point before this happened. So I'm really crossing my fingers, and Jeb makes it back into the command pod. Whew, that was a close one. I fought the Space Kraken and won there, Jeb. Very good. After that bit of excitement, things calm down a little bit, get back to normal. I go ahead and do my plane change, and then I bring my orbit down a little bit, get a little bit closer to Kerbal, and before too long, what do you know, I'm ready to make a fine adjustment, and then again, another half an orbit away or so, and I finally have my encounter with Kerbal. So I'll go ahead and make a few minor course corrections there, bring my apoapsis down into the atmosphere. I could circularize this orbit. It wouldn't take me that much. It says 600 meters per second. I have more than that. It would be easy to go ahead and try and land more precisely, but hey, I don't really care. I mean, look, I've got a ton of fuel left over. I've got that 5,000 meters per second delta V in the stage that I haven't even gotten to, and I'm not even sure how much I've got left in these things. But you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and ditch the extra fuel and just go right on back down to Kerbal and use aerobraking to do all the work for me. And it's at this point I'm thinking, hey, I could have done a lot of really cool stuff with all that extra weight I brought into orbit. I could have made a better lander. I could have used a rover. I could have not used these atomic engines, and then the burns would have been a lot shorter and a lot easier to deal with. Maybe I could have had a 3-man crew. I mean, I way overbuilt that interplanetary stage, that's for sure. While I did a really good job testing the lander to make sure Jeb could use the ladders to get back into the command seat, I didn't do a good job testing the lander's second stage, and that made rendezvousing in orbit a pain. Well, I should fix that, but I could also, in addition, I could add a remote guidance system to the main spacecraft so that I could control it instead. It had plenty of fuel left over. I could have used that to make the rendezvous and then have Jeb hop out, or however. The way I had it set up was not very good in that respect. Also, I need to add some more solar panels, randomly realizing that I don't have one pointed towards the sun and then putting myself in a tight spot. That's not good. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I certainly learned a lot. It's a lot of editing needed all done. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did, and I will see you next time.